I was once involved in a war with an implacable foe. Okay, I was 8 and it was over a swimming pool. Mr. Jefferson was our neighbour in Kabwe, Zambia. And the first time I met him, he said to me, "Michael, son, you can use my pool whenever you like." Now, this was huge, as it was known amongst us kids that Mr. Jefferson had the biggest and the best pool in the neighbourhood. There was only one problem: the gigantic anthill right next to the pool, full of super aggressive ants. And I knew they were super aggressive because the first time I attempted to use the pool, the ants attacked me and badly bit my legs. I knew the solution, however, would lie somewhere in my library. Now, this wasn't any ordinary 8-year-old's library. This was 2,000 books, categorised. So, of course, the first place I went to was periodicals. And soon enough, I came across a copy of Reader's Digest, and it had a story in it about a man in America who poured petrol into an anthill on his property and ended up burning his own home down. Now, even I, aged 8, knew that was idiotic. Next, I went to military history and found a copy of Art of War by Sun Tzu. And that did give me a good few ideas. And lastly, I moved on to zoology. And I found a book on Zambian flora and fauna, which gave me the simplest solution. It stated, ants will evacuate the anthill if flooded out. And as luck would have it, Mr. Jefferson had recently liberated a hose from his employer. It was a huge, long thing with a big brass spout, and it said on the side, "Property of Zambian Railways." And I also knew that the Jeffersons were about to go on a trip to visit their daughter in the capital, Lusaka, and would be away for at least 24 hours. And I could wait. As Sun Tzu says, make your plans as dark as the night, and when you move, strike like a thunderbolt. Soon enough, the day of the trip dawned, and I made my way across the road to help load the car. And Mrs. Jefferson said, "Oh, Michael, you're such a sweet boy." And I thought to myself, sweet boy? I'm 8, not 5. But as Sun Tzu says, deception is your friend. And soon enough, the car was packed. The Jeffersons got inside and drove off. I gave it 10 minutes and then put my plan in motion. I ran over to where the hose was kept, attached it to the spigot, and dragged the rest of it over to the anthill, taking the spout and jamming it down the main entrance. I then ran back to the spigot and turned the water on, and then squatted a couple of feet away to watch the action. Now, at this point, the ants did try to attack me, but my forward planning was such, I was wearing galoshes instead of being barefoot, so received no bites. Ants were now running this way and that. There was no stopping the water, however, and soon ants were taking food from within the anthill. A few minutes later, a boiling mass of ants erupted out of the anthill. This was the evacuation of the Queen. The mass was hit by the water, split apart, and was washed away. And I leaned in to get a better look at the action. Missing something moving within the deep recesses of the anthill. About a minute later, another wave of ants came out of the anthill. However, I had lost all interest in ants because there, framed in the main entrance of the anthill, was a snake. And this just wasn't any snake. This was a black mamba, the deadliest snake in Africa. And it flicked out its tongue to smell the air. and then glided out of the anthill towards me. And I froze in absolute terror. So much so that I could feel my senses heighten. I could feel droplets of sweat on my upper lip, and my irises dilate as my heart beat out of my chest. And I remembered an earlier trip I had made to Kafue National Park and what the ranger had told me about black mamba snakes. Black mambas are extremely aggressive snakes. When they attack, they bite their victims several times, injecting them with large quantities of venom, 2 drops of which can kill a grown man. An 8-year-old boy squatting 2 feet away would have no chance. And then I thought about the headlines. Dead boy aged 8. And I have to say, at that point, my mind did drift off to more prosaic matters. Who would finish the reorganisation of my library? And what about my stamp collection? I just received a new pack of stamps from my grandparents in Scotland. Who would put them in the book? I doubt my dad even knew what a stamp hinge was. And what about my clothes? At the moment, I put everything away according to colour. I'm sure my mother, an immensely practical woman, wouldn't put up with any of that shit. But thankfully, for me and my weird preoccupations, the snake turned and glided away into the mango trees. And such was the relief that my legs gave way under me, and I splashed down in the water, and angry ants. Ow, 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 ow! I jumped up and hobbled over to the spigot, turning it off before I made my way gingerly home, nursing my fresh ant bites. And that night, I went back into my library and picked up the old textbook on Zambian flora and fauna and read the rest of the paragraph that I'd neglected to do earlier. And it said, small mammals, as well as black mamba snakes and puff adders, will take shelter within anthills. I never did get to use that pool, having to make do with lesser ant-free examples. But, as Sun Tzu says, you may know how to conquer without being able to. Thank you.